All right, we want to welcome you. Thank you for joining us on today's podcast, the Next Step podcast that we're leaning in toward about Raise the Roof, and we want to talk about getting crazy. Todd had a T-shirt on last night. This podcast, if you will,
This isn't the one.
It's not the one. It's not the one. The T-shirt last night kind of leans into, if you will, the podcast today. Let's get crazy. We want to talk to you today about getting crazy. We are crazy. But it's more than that. Let's get crazy. Todd, you had a shirt on last night that really stood out to me. And tell the listeners about your shirt. If you
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite, probably CEOs, entrepreneurs of all time is a guy named Steve Jobs. Many of you probably know who Steve Jobs is. I'm not holding Steve Jobs up as the example of a human being.
More morality.
Because the guy was a pretty brutal leader, but he had a vision and he had a passion for the mission. And if you read anything about Steve Jobs at all, the guy just knew what he wanted and he went after it. And one of the quotes that comes from Steve Jobs, and I'm paraphrasing right now, was the fact that if it's only the crazy people who change the world. You got to be a little bit crazy. And those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Right. So I had a T-shirt made up with that quote on the back, with the correct quote on the back. Look it up, Google it, Chat GPT it, whatever. The Steve Jobs crazy quote. And then on the front of the T-shirt, I had, "Let's get crazy."
Yes.
Right. Let's get crazy. And it does take some out of the box thinking. It takes some out of the box attitude. It takes some out of the box actions to make a difference in anything. And most of us don't make a difference in the world because we're afraid to get uncomfortable. We're afraid to look foolish. I can't tell you the number of times that people looked at Steve Jobs, if you read anything about him, and looked at him and they're like, you're crazy. You're nuts. You can't do that. People won't buy that. People will not, and on down the line. And Steve Jobs always said, well, we're doing it anyway. And he literally changed computing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that they see Microsoft a lot of times. Well, Microsoft during those days kind of followed Apple. It wasn't Apple following Microsoft. It was Microsoft following Apple.
I think there's something to be said for a man who is willing to get uncomfortable, or a woman, for that matter, who is willing to get uncomfortable, who is willing to say, I'm really not concerned with how I'm perceived, but there's this intrinsic passion that I have that I'm going to channel and harness and use in such a way as to do something that is so totally out of the box in an effort to try to achieve drastic, remarkable results. Like, I think that's awesome. I love, throughout the course of my vocational ministry experience, there are many times where in the leadership positions where I'm like, we're going to do something that's just different. Something that's crazy. You've seen some of those things.
Yeah.
And much to the chagrin of the people, some of the people that I was leading, they're like, what in the world are you thinking? And well, I want to get crazy. Let's get a little crazy. And when you think about, Jesus's earthly mission, it was kind of a crazy mission, and what he instilled in his people, his followers, his closest followers, where they went, what they did. There was a lot of outside of the box thinking. Even when you jump to the early church in Acts, when Peter is not so impressed with the idea of the gospel going to the Gentiles, right? And God ultimately uses him, and it goes to Cornelius. But you think about that, like, this is, the eating of unclean things. This is not something I'm used to, and it's not something that a good Jew would do, right? But it's outside of the box. It's crazy. So and through that, the gospel is spread, of course, in such a remarkable way. So I think, Todd, there's something to be said for a man who is willing to get crazy for the sake of the mission. And when we say crazy, we don't mean like loose living.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. We just something different and unique and willing to get uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's Raise the Roof. Raise the Roof and all of its ambiguity right now is about, all right, we're going to get crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm reminded we're talking about, because Jesus is our example.
Right.
Steve Jobs is not our example.
No, he's not.
So if our first crazy person is not Steve Jobs, and I don't mean this in a blasphemous way at all, in any way, shape, or form, right? But if we're going to follow somebody who did some crazy things, it was Jesus.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm reminded in John chapter 7, and it says of Jesus, and even his brothers did not believe in him. And the Bible kind of indicates that they believed that he was beside himself.
Oh, yes.
And that means they thought he was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
To be beside, only a crazy person is beside himself, and the Bible uses that terminology quite a bit of so-and-so was beside himself. They were out of their mind.
Yes.
And that's what verse 5 of John chapter 7, for even his brothers did not believe in him, because of what they saw. And it just was different. And it was different to the religious leaders. It was different to the culture. It was different in the way he approached things. You think about the woman at the well, the woman caught up in adultery, and how Jesus dealt with those people. He did not condemn them. He called out their sin, right? But he loved them, and he said, "I'm here for you, right? I'm the water from which you will never thirst. If you drink of me." And so Jesus showed us the ultimate crazy, if you will, in terms of how he approached things. So that's our ultimate example.
Yeah.
So I could say Steve Jobs is not our ultimate example.
He's
so
not.
We can use he gets great T-shirts out of it. So
yeah, he does. He great slogans and the idea of I can take what a worldly there's a worldly example here that is not a good godly example, and it can be better refined in such a way that it brings glory to God, because it puts the attention and focus on what really matters, not on just worldly wealth, fame, or possessions, but a spiritual transformation. Because at the end of the day, not to get the cart ahead of the horse, but at the end of the day, so much of Raise the Roof is focused on transformation, and I'm excited about it. I can't wait.
So we had a discussion last night. Samuel and I had a discussion last night. Excuse me. About we're planning for an event this September. It's crazy. That's why he's laughing over here.
I've done a lot of stupid things in my life. Never had. I don't know that I've ever done one so willingly for the cause of Christ. It feels like
you'll be beside yourself.
We'll be beside myself. Yeah. Yes.
So we have called this event Raise the Roof. And it's not just an event. We're doing some things leading up to Raise the Roof, the event. It's the big event. But Raise the Roof, the ultimate goal for Raise the Roof monetarily is we have a minimum goal of raising $1 million. And $1 million is not a lot of money.
No.
It's not. It's a lot of money to raise quickly, but it's not a lot of money. I read the other day that if you made $100,000 100 years ago, that's like $1 million. It's not that much. And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to belittle anything less than. I'm not trying. It's right. But $1 million. When I say we're here to raise $1 million, it's not that much, and it's out there. It's just a matter of, do people want to? Do they believe in what you're doing to invest in that cause? Right. And that's the issue. The money is out there. The issue is, do people buy in to what you're doing? They believe in what you're doing. When we started Next Step many, many, many years ago, and the vision for Next Step, there were many people who looked at me and they were like, "You can't do it.
Right.
You won't. You'll never. That'll never happen. It's great, wonderful that you have that dream, but it's not going to happen." And if I listened to those people, we wouldn't be here today. Right. So I don't want to listen to people who will say, "Well, that's impossible. You can't do that." And even if I can't say we go to raise $1 million and we don't reach our goal, did I raise something? Did I raise 100,000? Did I raise 200,000? All I know is I got more than what I had, and so the effort still has to take place.
Yes,
the effort still has to take place. So the monetary goal, Samuel, is at least $1 million. And now in my mind, I'm even going $2 million, because what we want to do is going to take more than $1 million.
Yes, it's going to take more. It's going to take more than $2 million, right? It's man. But we're not there yet as far as at this point in the journey, right? We need our listeners to know that we're ready to get crazy. We're going to get crazy, and we want them to get a little bit crazy with us.
Yeah.
And there's going to be ways for that to happen, because the results of getting crazy will bring such long lasting impact to the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, that we can't not pursue it, right? We are called to be obedient. We're called to step out on faith. We're called to, and to your credit, $1 million is not a lot of money, right? A mountain looks really, could look really challenging and impossible to overcome until you're standing on top of it and you look back down and like, well, that's really not that. It's not that monumental, right? It all depends on our perspective. If I'm at the foot of the mountain, it looks massive, but when I'm on top of it, maybe it's not nearly as big as what I want.
When I'm at the foot of the mountain looks massive. When I'm on top of the mountain, the world looks small.
The world looks small. That's good. That's a shirt.
Yeah,
that's a t-shirt.
And that's that right now we're looking at that mountain going, that's $1 million. But when you're there, you're going like, oh, this is not enough, and it's not going to be enough. I'm just telling you that right now, right? Because I wrote down some stuff this morning that I haven't even shared with Samuel yet. That because raise the roof. So you're saying, okay, Todd, we're going to raise. Your goal is to raise at least $1 million, right? Now, let me be very clear. We're going to need partners. We're going to need big partners in this, right? And I'm not going to use names right now, but I had a meeting last Thursday at this time. I had a beating.
Yes, that's
a beating.
A beating.
I had a meeting with a very significant, large national corporation last week, that we're developing a partnership with. And with that partnership comes other partnerships. As I'm meeting with this person, they're throwing out more names of large international corporations that I don't know where that will go, but I'm just saying we're developing and trying to move our spider web out into other partners, right? In the not just in the community, but around the state and wherever we can. So, but the goal of Raise the Roof, what we want to do is, let me give you a little bit of background here. Okay. We live in Macon, Georgia. Which sits in the middle of the state. We're right smack dab in middle Georgia. And in Macon, as I look at Macon, a city with a huge, a tremendous history, that when you walk through Macon and when you walk down the street where Next Step resides, you won't go very far and you're going to turn around and you're going to go, it's unsafe here.
Yeah.
It's unsafe here. There's crime, there's shootings, there's murder, there's drug use, there's addiction, there's poverty, there's blight. And I shared with Sam last night, I can't throw a rock in Macon and not hit a church. And I can't throw very far. and you can't hit a church. You can't hit a nonprofit. All doing great work. All doing wonderful work. But we still have this city which is a mess. And there's several factors. A lack of leadership is one of them. Government is not going to fix the problems in Macon. They can build as many buildings as they want to build, and that's been the solution. Is just build buildings that look pretty, and then people will change. Well, that that doesn't change people. You got to change hearts and you got to change minds, and then all that other stuff comes. But until you change hearts and you change minds, that's not going to work. So when you look at the city of Macon, and I was running the numbers last night and this morning. Now, if I pull up the unemployment rate in Macon, it's going to tell you that it's right around 5% unemployment rate, a little bit higher than the national average. But in reality, the unemployment rate in Macon is much higher than that. When you really look at who's looking for work versus what the opportunities are, that rate is pushing anywhere from 15 to 20%, and I believe it's higher, and that's only anecdotal. And as I live in this community and I look around this community, it's much higher than any percentage you're gonna get on paper. And Jeff Bezos said, believe the anecdotal evidence before you believe the evidence that you're pulling up in statistics from somebody like the Bureau of Labor, somebody like that. You trust your anecdotal observations much quicker than you trust what you're reading. He said, because that's probably more true than what you're reading, when people are giving you, well, the unemployment rate is 5%. Well, when I look around, it's much greater than that, right? The high school dropout rate, the lack of education, the opportunities in Macon are great. They're huge. There's high schools everywhere. There's colleges everywhere. There's help everywhere. The issue is there's an attitude of failure in Macon. There's an attitude of failure in Macon. There's an attitude of despair in Macon.
Yeah, it's very bleak.
Yes,
it is. It's very bleak.
I see no future in Macon.
It is hopeless in a sense. It's no wonder, or it would be unsurprising were so much of the city given to despondency, just because there is not a positive outlook for this city. There really isn't, and it's not something that's happened overnight. And just only having been in Macon for a year and a half now, there are so, and I understand any city in America is going to have depressing spots, right?
Sure.
But when the whole city just feels like from south to mid to east to west, like there's so much, like, man, it seems hopeless. The homelessness, the crime rate is there's just so much that needs to be transformed, if you will. And I think that when you, like you mentioned, when you start diving into the real numbers of Macon, who would want to bring a business or an enterprise here? You talked about that last night.
Yeah, Macon can draw $15, $20 an hour jobs.
Right. I mean, warehouse jobs. Right.
We're bringing in warehouses like crazy. You're not drawing Intel. You're not drawing Google. You're not drawing NVIDIA. You're not drawing, these major. God can do anything God wants to do.
Sure.
But he uses human energy. He uses human effort, and he uses human smarts, and he uses human innovation. I've said this before. The first thing we learn about God in the Bible is that he's a creator. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The first thing God did was he created that we learned about. Right? Human beings are made in that image, and we are made to create. We are created to create. We are created to make better. Birds have been living in birdhouses since the beginning of time. Man is not living in what he originally lived in since the beginning of time.
Right.
We have beautiful skyscrapers, and we build buildings, we build cities, right? Birds are still living in birdhouses or bird nests, birdhouses. If they live in a birdhouse, it's because we built it.
That's right. That's right.
If a dog lives in a doghouse, it's because we built it.
That's right.
The dog didn't build it. And so man is set above everything, and God uses man to come in and make things better.
Yes.
He even said that about the garden, right? Keep it, tend to it. To Adam and Eve, you have to take care of paradise. You have to take care of it.
Cultivate it.
Yeah. So until, excuse me, until Macon is at a point where it can draw in major employers. And I appreciate, I appreciate the folks the industry that we do have here. You know, you do have Geico here. You do have some of those larger industries, and and those who provide jobs. But we don't have industry coming in here that provides landscape changing
Right.
money. In Macon, I have Mercer University, an excellent school. I have Wesleyan College or Wesleyan University. I'm not sure what it is now, but which is an all women's college.
Mm-hmm.
I have Middle Georgia University, Middle Georgia College. I have Central Georgia Technical College. I have Georgia Military College. I have a number of different technical schools in the area. I have all this education, and yet nothing comes here that makes an impact economic. And why is that? Well, that's because you have an uneducated populace that industry looks at and says, there's nothing there I can use.
Right.
That's the reality here. That's the reality of Macon. Industry looks at Macon and says, there's nothing there for us to use.
Yeah, and to be clear, we're not saying that we agree with the assessment that there's no value to this place, right? That's why we see
just
the
the
value.
opposite. We see the value.
That's why we're like, okay, we need to drill down into the value that does exist here. Like that's what we do in recovery, like, with these men that come out of jails, that come out of prisons, that come off the streets, that are homeless, right? Broken families, broken relationships, lives falling apart, addicted to substances. We see inherent value in these men, even though they may not see it in themselves. When I came to Next Step myself, when I looked in the mirror, it was so difficult, so challenging for me to see the intrinsic value that my Heavenly Father had placed over me, right? It was so challenging because all I could see were the failures and the mistakes of my life that I felt like I had made, right? And yet, and my Heavenly Father, He bringing me to Next Step, Him bringing me to Next Step. He used that to take my misaligned understandings and get them in alignment with what He sees and what He knows and what He perceives. And so that's what we do with these men here, these broken, dilapidated men. We pull them in to this program, and we try to, we endeavor to pull out the value in them that their Creator has placed in them, right? Because they are the Imago Dei. They are image bearers, right? And so that we see the value of our community.
Yeah.
We see it's there. It is and it can be harnessed. So we want to harness it, right? So I think that what we're bringing, what we're doing, what we desire to do goes right along. Transformation is a beautiful process. It is a beautiful thing to witness. It's beautiful when it takes place in the scriptures, and it's beautiful to see it happen in front of you. I'm not the same man, Todd, when I came into this program. When I came to Next Step, I didn't speak. I just wouldn't speak. The first few weeks that I was here, I didn't talk. Going back in my journals and seeing how God moved in my own life. It's why I believe in this program so much. It's why I believe in what we do so much, because I become a product of it, right? And that's in a sense, we want to take that product and take it not just in the four walls of our.
Yeah, I believe that God has placed us here on Houston Avenue in Macon. If you're not from Macon, Houston Avenue is in South Macon. And it is I call it the land that time forgot. And up the road here, our politicians are building houses in the slums, which I can't figure that out right now. I'm trying to figure out the philosophy behind building a $300,000 home in the slums, and who's going to buy that but yet everybody around you is still robbing, killing, shooting.
Yes.
using drugs. Nobody's going to buy a $300,000 home until the mindset
So there's a change.
So I'm still trying to, and maybe a politician here in Macon can help me understand that a little better. But again, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. So this area of Houston Avenue that we live in, it's in my nature. It's in my nature, Samuel. It's in my nature to look at something that is broken down and go, I like that because I see potential in that. Right. I love, my wife and I have a really bad habit of buying old, ugly houses and fixing them up and making them something beautiful again, and then selling them, and people love them. We're working on a house now where the neighbor came by a couple weeks ago while I was out front, and she said, Todd, she goes, this house used to be the most beautiful house on this road. And she goes, and now look at it. And I looked at her and I said, it will be again.
It will be again.
It will be the most, you're going to be so jealous of this house when we're done, right? And that's, I look at we've been operating here on Houston Avenue for 8 years now. We moved here in 2018, the ministry did. Right. And so so for 8 years in our time here, we've been able to buy the building we're in and buy the lot behind us, the houses behind us, a few of them. And then we're in the warehouse that we're in right now doing this podcast, and the house that's attached to that. Right. And I told Sam last night, I said, the only way to change the road, to change this area of Macon, is to buy it.
Yeah.
I just got to buy it. That you want to change it, you just buy it, right? Because the politicians aren't going to change it. They're not. God's people are going to be I believe yes. They're the catalyst. Politicians are going to throw money at a problem, and thinking that throwing money at a problem and building a $300,000 home in a drug-infested road is somehow going to change the road. And I think you're just going to have a $300,000 home that sits there empty.
That's right. Todd, what happens when an impoverished, bankrupt, historically unwise decision maker wins $100 million? What happens?
Typically, what we know historically, and this is not everybody,
right?
But typically, if somebody wins the lottery, multiple millions of dollars, and they have, first of all, if you're playing the lottery, and I'm not trying to judge people who play the lottery, right? But if you're playing the lottery, you're probably playing the lottery because that's you're hoping that you're going to hit it big,
right?
And you probably don't have a lot of money
to play the lottery in the first place.
So you don't know how to manage money. So you get millions of dollars, and within 4 to 5 years, you're bankrupt. Typically, that's the typical fashion, that the typical outcome for a lottery winner. It happens a lot to professional athletes too. They make millions of dollars.
Yes. Jamarcus Russell comes to my mind immediately.
What's his name? Mike Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tyson broke,
60 years old.
Yeah.
Getting beat on by a young guy now, just to make money.
Made millions. So yeah, right.
But I think that there's a parallel there, right, with politicians throwing money at a system that's broken, right?
It doesn't value money,
absolutely. So much like if an individual who is not trained, equipped to deal and manage properly. I was going through experiencing God with the men on Tuesdays, and there was a scripture that came to mind. I was praying about a situation in my life and just saying, God, this is what I'm praying and asking for, and yet this has not come to fruition. Why is that? And the Lord led me to the scripture, and I can't think of, a part of me wants to say maybe it's in one of the epistles to the church at Corinth that Paul wrote, but I don't want to mutilate it offhand. But the gist of the scripture is that he who inherits a trust has been faithful. It's something to the effect of that if to receive a trust, I must first prove faithful. right? There must be a faithfulness in my life. If I want God, if I desire this in trusting of something of value, I have to prove myself.
Yeah.
That I can manage it, that I can maintain it, right? Because when you think of the parable in the New Testament where Christ is talking about the one who had been entrusted with the talents, you had all these men who were entrusted with talents. No man was entrusted with more than he could manage,
right?
Properly manage, according to his master's directives. And so I'm not going to be entrusted with more than I can manage. And when I prove that I'm able to manage, then He's going to entrust me with these things. So much the same, like we are, our politicians, we are entrusting individuals to manage something beyond their capacity to manage it.
Yeah,
and it's just making the results worse.
We haven't addressed this.
Yes,
we're putting in these. We're going to put in infrastructure, but we haven't
no foundation.
But we haven't built this, and the government can't do that. The government's not going to do it. The government doesn't know how to do it. The government has answers to too many masters, right? Our government, our local government, your local government, wherever you live, our federal government, it answers to too many masters, too many special interest groups. So therefore, it cannot and it will not. It's impossible for your government to do anything of long-lasting value. It cannot do it. The Bible says, what's the government's role God says the government has really two very limited roles. Punish evildoers.
Brandish the sword.
And reward those who do well. Our government does the opposite.
Yeah.
Our government, at all levels, punishes those who do well. Mm-hmm. And basically turns a blind eye to those who are evildoers, who are breaking the law. So we wonder why things don't get fixed. We wonder why things are still broken. We wonder why government solution seems to be, I scratch my head and I go, is this what we're doing?
Who came up with this idea?
Well, I need your vote. I need your vote. That's what I need your vote. So, yeah. So raise the roof, right? So here's the bottom line for Raise the Roof. We're just a small little ministry here in Macon, Georgia, that wants to make an impact on Macon, Georgia, and beyond, right? But we got to start somewhere. We got to start on Houston Avenue. We have to start right here where we are, right? Yeah. So I shared with Sam last night my vision, where we are right now, the seat that I'm sitting in here right now, on this property, I have room to build a structure from which I call it the hub. You could call it the heart. I said, and it is not a building from where we're going, come in here and we're going to insulate ourselves. No, it is something to where from that point, our tentacles go out.
Yes.
Right? We're launching out from that. It's a place. And I put down, this is what I didn't share with you last night because I did it this morning. I said, what is Raise the Roof? What does roof stand for? It stands for this. Here are the things we're going to focus on. Look, one of the things we're going to focus on, roof, is going to stand for something. Reentry and recovery, right? Georgia has it used to, we may be a little off now. We're not as high as we used to be, but we were number one in the country for incarceration or people on paper, probation, parole, right? So when and a large part of Macon suffers from that. We have a lot of homelessness because of incarceration. They come out of jail. They have no place to go. They have no job. Well, we have a ministry that will feed. Wonderful. I am grateful for ministries that will feed you.
Yes.
And I'm grateful for ministries that will let you come wash your clothes. And I'm grateful for ministries who will let you come apply for a job, but you're applying for jobs that don't pay you anything. $15 an hour is minimum wage right now. Unofficial minimum wage. I know in Georgia, I think the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Why government? I will never debate anybody about minimum wage because I don't think government has any business setting any type of wage. It's not their business. It's not government's business to set a minimum wage. It's business's business to set a minimum wage. And they choose that based on the value of their workers.
Yes, right. That's wise.
So we want to focus on reentry and recovery. What do people need coming out of? Because a large part of making is on paper. A large part of making is on some type of probation or parole, or they have, if they're not anymore, they still have a felony record, right? There's a workforce out there, and we are trying to work right now. And I won't use a corporate name, but if I said the corporate name, it would impact every single one of you. I'm working with this corporation right now to develop a training program that would address, so you would have dollars coming in from corporate America to help address reentry and recovery. And I put those two together because there's lots of men and women who are not coming out of jail or not coming out of prison, but they're coming out of a recovery program and they don't know where to go. They don't know. I shared an email with you last night from a lady who was in desperate. And that's just one of many. So reentry and recovery. That's one of the missions of that our hub focuses on, right? So it's more than Next Step, because Next Step can't do it. We don't do women. We don't have a recovery program for women. So we have partnerships. So the second thing, so the R stands for recovery and reentry, right? Right. So we're raising the roof. The first O stands for opportunity. We want to provide job training, job skills. We want to make sure that they're getting connected with Central Georgia Technical College to get their GED. And if they can't afford it, we need to connect them with people who can help pay for it, right? We want to make sure the opportunity is there. We want to make sure that we're bringing in the right people into the building, right? And like I said, I'm sitting right here on this property right here. We have the property to build this building. We have the property to do it. We don't have the money to do it, right? So opportunity, that's your first O. Your second O is this: ownership. If you don't take ownership for your life, if you don't take ownership for your family, if you don't take ownership, and I include with that, I said ownership equals leadership and responsibility. We don't have any leadership in Macon. From our politicians, and I love our politicians. I think I know some of them. I think the world of them, but they're misguided. We got to develop people in this community that aren't so misguided.
Yes.
And so ownership, developing ownership, leadership, and responsibility within our community, down to, let's start in the schools.
Right.
Let's start in the schools. There's lots of people out there doing great work in that arena. Let's bring them together so we all get focused, right? And then finally, the F. We've got to focus on future investment. Future investment. So there's your roof, right?
I like it.
Recovery, opportunity, ownership, and future investment. I want to see starting right here on Houston Avenue, right? Starting right here, right where we are. What's the that's why I said it's going to take more than $1 million.
Yeah.
$1 million gets us, it might get a building built.
Right. Or maybe.
It might get a building built. And now you got to make sure that you're now investing in South Macon, right? Hey, I live in what we call sub-South Macon. There's South Macon, which is kind of impoverished. And then I live in sub-South Macon, which is what we would call the county.
Right.
Right. This is the city. I'm in the county, sub-South. So I am not only South Macon, I'm south of South Macon, almost going into Warner Robins. So when I go down the road right now in sub-South Macon, guess what I'm seeing in sub-South Macon? I'm seeing the homelessness in sub-South Macon, where it used to not exist.
Wow. Of all places.
I call them the zombies. I see the zombies walking down the road. the men and the women who are strung out on meth. They're strung out on marijuana. They're strung out on alcohol. They're strung out on fentanyl. They're strung, and they're just walking down the road.
This is a shell, walking shell.
They're just a shit. They're a zombie, right? It's the movies,
right?
And there's more and more and more and more of them. We had a guy here at Next Step the other day. He had been to Next Step before, and he came back, and he only stayed a couple of days. And he, like a lot of them, they get mad about something. They don't like the rules. But when he was here that day, he told me, he said this to me. He said, "Todd, for the last 2 years, I've been living right behind your house."
Good grief!
I didn't even know it.
Good grief!
Strung out, high, messed up. He said, "Yeah." He goes, "Your little dog that gets out all the time, I watch her run down the road."
In Sub-South.
In Sub-South Macon.
How did that make you feel? I want to chase that.
It creeped me out.
I want to chase that for a moment.
It creeped me. I didn't know he was there. I know he was there.
Like, is there a house? Is there a shed? Is there a building?
Yeah, he said he was at a house. He's over there at some house.
Like an abandoned house?
No.
Squatter house?
Yeah, he was just hanging out with somebody over there at this house, but watching me through the woods there. He said, watching.
So one thing that Schmidt Digital is going to be providing is an increase in security systems, and I need to talk to you about protecting your assets. I mean, when you think about that, that's beyond disconcerting to almost disturbing.
And they're doing it to you too. To you, they're right. So I live in a when you go to the end of my road, it's just a cul-de-sac. I don't live in a neighborhood. I live in a road, right? And when you go to the end of the road down there, sometimes I'll run in the morning. And I'll run if I get up early enough to run. A lot of times there's a car parked in the cul-de-sac down there. Don't know who it is. It's not always the same car. But I can imagine why they're there. They don't belong in a neighborhood. They're not, it's just so, what I'm saying is that this doesn't, you think it just impacts
a small section of.
No, how many, I've had to buy all new locks for all my, I have a couple trailers, because people are stealing those trailers left and right out of people's backyards, they're breaking in there. This is nothing new, but I'm just saying it impacts all of us, right? And we can complain about it, and we can elect a new politician who tells us that he's going to give us a solution, and he or she is not going to give you a solution.
Yep.
Right? They're going to take your vote, they're going to take your money, and they're going to appreciate it. And they're going to build some stuff and do this and look real good and make some proclamations and develop some programs that don't do anything. And they're going to hand out a bunch of money that doesn't do anything.
From your pocket.
Right. And then they're going to throw some stats out there and say, "Oh, look what we did." But then when you look around, the stats they're throwing at you don't match what you seek. Mm-hmm. And so we believe that something different has to happen. Something different has to occur. And it's not going to be through your government. It's not going to be through your politicians. And if they want to jump in and say, "Hey, we'll help," great. But we're not going to do it their way anymore. Right. We're not doing it your way.
Let me say this one thought. And I know we need to wrap it up, Todd, but I grew up in eastern Kentucky on the West Virginia border, right there on the mountains, that Appalachian Mountains, right? And Lyndon B. Johnson declared the war on poverty. The war on poverty in the county that I'm from, Martin County. This was the government's initiative to come, to get involved, to declare the war on poverty, to make this big hoopla and hoorah. We're going to fix the impoverished mountains, the hillbillies, the barefoot. We're going to get the government full frontal and their involvement in this and reshape and rechange these uneducated, inbred, pathetic, barefoot, no good hillbillies and rednecks, right? And I'm gonna tell you, I'm proud to be a hillbilly. I'm proud of my heritage. I always say I'm a hillbilly.
Yeah, I say you're a hillbilly. Yeah, I was trying to think of that term.
I am proud to be from the mountains of eastern Kentucky. Some of the greatest people I've ever met and know, and people who just love the Lord and its own fair share of problems, just like anywhere else. I am proud to be from eastern Kentucky, beyond proud. And still yet, the government made a decision to get involved, and the war on poverty was declared in my county, my hometown. It was declared by President Johnson, and 50 years later, right, 50 years after the fact, we look back and nothing has changed. Nothing. 60 years, nothing has changed. 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years from now, nothing will have changed because it's the government cannot fix a heart.
No.
They cannot transform. You know, the government exists to protect its people, to brandish the sword, right? They exist for those. It does not exist to transform a life.
Nowhere in the Bible does it tell government to feed people. It tells the church, it tells you and I. The fact that we have government feeding people is the problem. And I don't, you're going to say, well, Todd, that's heartless. No, what's heartless is you keep wanting to do this. And it is keeping people, the government welfare keeps people poor. It is intentionally designed. Intentional, right.
Yeah.
The government keeps people, food stamps, EBT keeps you poor. It keeps you dependent. It keeps you from being creative.
Yeah, it limits your ingenuity. Right?
It limits your you don't have to think now about how you're going to
survive,
right? How you're going to get to the next thing. It punishes you, and you think it's helping you.
Right.
Then they'll be more than happy to keep doing that.
They would be honored and love to for the rest of their life. But at some point, Mama Bird does not spend her entire existence. What happens when Baby Bird gets older? Is Mama Bird going to keep bringing the worm and keep bringing the worm and keep bringing the worm? What's going to happen? Mama Bird knows that Baby Bird's got to learn to fly, because there is no value to the existence of being propped up. Now, there are situations we know that happen where people, they need additional help and they can't survive on their own, right? But by and large, right, Mama Bird has got to push Baby Bird out.
But we can't effectively help those who really need it because we're helping all those who don't need it.
Who don't.
So therefore, we're robbing those and we're denying those who truly need it. And I call it down here, I call it the manipulation of the system, the Houston Avenue hustle.
Huh.
I'll give you an example right now. There was a guy down the road here who, these boarding houses, right? We have these boarding houses down here where they buy up a house. It's got 4 bedrooms. They rent out each bedroom. They share the kitchen. They share a bathroom, and then the landlord rents out the bedrooms separately, right? And he charges $150 a week cash, right? Cash.
Yes.
So you're paying cash. So he's got 4 bedrooms. He's getting $600 a week.
Yeah.
Out of these tenants. Times if you go
$2,400, and that's if it's at $150. That's a low ball figure.
So he's getting $2,400 a month out of one house, and he owns 10 of them
off the record,
right? Cash, So he's making $24,000 a month, and he's living on food stamps. He's making $24,000 a month. And because he shows no income, that's the Houston Avenue hustle. And people say there's no fraud. Well, there is fraud. That's up and down this. It's up and down this road.
All over it.
We owned a house over here. We owned a house right over here. Next step, we bought this warehouse. We owned the house over here. And when Next Step purchased that property, the tenants that were in there were under Section 8 housing. So they were receiving funds from the government for rent from HUD, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were paying $800 a month to live in that house. The government sent us a check for $760 every month, and she paid $40. So $800 a month. Of that, she paid $40. The government paid $760. So every month she brought us a check for $40, and the government sent us a check. And finally, we when we bought that house, we didn't kick her out right away, because we didn't want to be heartless and say, hey, we bought this house now. We got to go. Right. So we gave it a few months, and they gave it a year, just, and finally we said, hey, we're going to do something different with this house. We're going to have to ask you to leave. And we had to go through HUD to do that. And we did. And, but when she found out that we were going to, evict her, for lack of a better word, right? She came to me and she said, Todd, she goes, I don't want to move. And I said, we need that house for the ministry here. We need that house for housing for our men. It doesn't fit. And we're mixing things here. We're mixing private enterprise now with a nonprofit. It doesn't work well.
Right.
And the government doesn't like that anyway. So she says, she looks at me and she goes, I'll buy that house. How much do you want for it? And I looked at her and I said, how are you going to buy that house? They said, you've been living there for the last 20 years on government assistance. And she goes, I got more than enough money to buy that house. I'll pay you cash for it. Right now. And I looked at her and I said, I just shook my head and I said, well, so I think from just piecing things together, for years, she had been running a brothel out of that house, banking tons of cash and living on government assistance.
And she lived in that house as well?
Mm-hmm. For 20 plus years.
And here I am working for Next Step.
Yeah.
I need to go expand my enterprise. I'm kidding.
It's the
I
house.
have no interest in the Houston Avenue hustle.
It's the Houston Avenue hustle. And it's survival. It really is. It's survival. But the government breeds that.
They breed it.
The government breeds that.
Our government needs that to survive.
Yes.
And we don't want it. We're not going to stand by. We're going to get crazy, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're going to get crazy. Let's get crazy.
And you might not like some of the things I've said here today. You might not appreciate it. You might not like truth. You might not like when you live down here, you see it, you learn it, you know what's happening, right? You watch it. I don't care what the government statistics say. I don't care if the government tells you that the amount of fraud that's happening with government assistance is many. We see different, right? So you can keep your stats.
Right. We as a case manager, as a full-blown case manager now, I see daily when men come in the program, the fraud that has taken place prior to their situations, which we rectify as soon as they get it next time and do things in the proper channel. It's happening.
Or families who are frauding their son who's coming into the program
all the time. Girlfriends that are frauding boyfriends, right?
Yes.
Frauding children. It is disconcerting, and we don't tolerate it.
Yeah. And then we get beat up by people because we put our foot down and we say, no, it stops
the right way.
Yeah, we do it the right way, or we don't do it at all, and they got to go. And they get mad at us
for trying to help them get their lives together.
For trying to help them get their lives together and do things legally. Anyway, Sam, thank you so much for entertaining me today and my rant on this podcast.
You can entertain mine. Todd entertains a lot. He deals with a lot with having me here. I am a difficult personality, I think, to have on board, but we're excited. I think it's going to be a fun journey. I'm looking forward to seeing us get crazy. I'm looking forward to living in the ambiguity a little bit longer, but then just seeing how our community is going to respond, because we have some crazy things that are coming.
So I'll just say this right now. Our goal, our plan is at the end of September is that we're going to climb up on this roof right here and we're going to live on this roof to raise that $1 million. And we're going to broadcast from that roof. And we're going to ask that you give. And we're going to ask that you make a sacrifice. We're going to ask that if you believe in what we're doing, that you partner with us. If you believe that something different can happen in Macon or in your city, or if you believe that something can change in your city, then you have a responsibility to do something about it.
There it is.
You have a responsibility. Not, again, government does what government does that it should do in terms of certain things. But I'm shocked at the number of Christians who look to government to meet needs that they should be meeting.
Yeah.
Shocked at it, but that's just me.
We're going to live on a roof.
Yeah.
We're going to live on a roof.
In Houston Avenue.
This is the moment where it just dawns in on me.
Yes.
This is what we're doing. Let's get crazy.
That's right.
Let's
All
get
right.
crazy.
Thanks so much. And we're going to do another one of these real soon.
Real soon.
Have a great week.
Have a blessed day.